So joining us today is Torrey Podmajersky. I'm not going to read out her official biography because you can see that on her website and in the description of this event. And of course, lots of you already know her. She's spoken at our meetup before, and if you've ever been to Button, you'll know her from her role as host there. And can I just say as an aside that hosting Torrey is quite intimidating because she brings such genuine warmth and enthusiasm to her hosting duties that I find it quite hard to emulate, even if I feel that same enthusiasm and warmth for our guests. So, just briefly, Tori is the founder of Catbird Content. She's shaped UX writing at little companies like Google and Microsoft. She speaks, teaches, and mentors UX practitioners all over the world and brings that same warmth and enthusiasm to everything she does. We love having Tori at any time, but one of the reasons we've asked her this month is that she has a new book out. Hopefully, all of you have a copy of her earlier book, Strategic Writing for UX. But her newest book, UX Skills for Business Strategy, is this amazingly practical book. I was just saying to Tori, it's like a cross between a choose your own adventure and a giant matrix. It lets you align all the different skills UX practitioners have to different business impacts we can have as content or UX practitioners. There's a line in the book that really resonated with me. It's that if we only tell our leaders about happy users, but not the dollars that we saved or spent, we fail to communicate our value. And I know from talking to lots of our clients and lots of our students that we teach that trying to articulate why we matter is still an issue. We wish it wasn't, but people are still fighting to prove their impact. So, Tori, we're so happy to have you here. Tori's going to be speaking about some of these matters, but from a content lens because we are a content meetup. So, Tori, I'm going to stop sharing and say a very warm welcome again to you and hand over.
Well, thank you so much. Honestly, uh, your this meetup is always so warm and welcoming. I am truly shocked that I could be intimidating in it. So,
Intimidating might have
don't,
been the wrong word.
I mean, I try not to be intimidating. Oh my goodness. Okay.
You're the opposite of intimidating. I just want to emulate you.
I want to emulate Mary Poppins. So, or Kermit the Frog. And there you know everything about when and how I grew up. Now, I want to talk to you about UX skills for business strategy, which is this new book and this new way of thinking about things. But emulating Lorian's great introduction here, I do want to acknowledge that I am here in the traditional lands of the Suquamish and Sklallam peoples in the Pacific Northwest of the what is now the United States of America, for as long as that lasts. And uh, and it is a truly wonderful place. And actually, this is a contour map from locally, and I'm going to use it in a metaphor to explain how UX skills relate to business strategy. Because business strategy can be this really both gnarly and slippery concept. So let's use this metaphor of using a map to go somewhere. Now, to make a strategy, you need to know something about where you're starting from. So, in this metaphor, from the bank of a stream near the foot of a mountain. And you also need to know something about where you want to get to. In this metaphor, to the top of a mountain ridge on the other side. Cool. But as you make your mountain climb, you want to know some landmarks to make sure you're heading in the right direction. And good news, there's lots of possibilities on this climb. There's lots of places you can go along the way, waypoints, milestones, but which ones are the right ones? Now, this is where your strategy comes in, determining which waypoints, which milestones will provide the most confident places for you to take the next step. So you choose them. Somebody in the business chooses them. These are the waypoints that you want to go towards. On a hike, maybe they're good places to rest or places with a pretty view or have a geocache you want to see. In a business, these waypoints are what gives you evidence that you're going in the right direction to meet the larger business goal. So These smaller directional steps before you meet your goal are those measurable, detectable impacts that we make in day-to-day work life. They tell our organization that we're going in the right direction. So in business life, they're not so obviously put on a map. These impacts could include like quarterly sales quotas that bring us to a year-end goal. Maybe it's like, we need a 3% improvement in adoption in a target audience. Cool. Maybe it's like 4% reduction in support costs for a product, or operational improvements or management improvements. But this is a metaphor. Let's stick with it just a little bit longer. Um, so cool. We decided where we're going in pursuit of our goal. How do we get there? That is where the skills come in. We might use different skills, bundles of skills, sets of skills to make each of those impact. And it's not just us, unless we're a company of one. Our whole team is working on these impacts. The idea is with these careers that we have, we use our skills to meet business goals and we get paid money for that. So that all of that planning together, taking into account the start, the goal, the impacts we need to make to show that we're going in the right direction, and the skills we use to get there, that whole thing is what we're calling the business strategy. And to be clear, the whole team is using skills, product skills, marketing skills, sales skills. But if the organization is making experiences for people to use, some of those skills had better be UX skills. That better happen. So that's what I wrote a book about with two co-authors, identifying the UX skills and the impacts we can make with them to help you and your organization put together the right strategy to meet that eventual goal. Okay, so far I'm talking a lot about UX skills, and I'm not yet focused down onto content skills. We're going to get there. Not quite yet, though. Let's just talk about what a skill is in general. Skills make up part of the value that you bring to your work, and they can become an integral part, integral, why is that word so hard? Integral part of your personal brand. As long as a person can learn to do them and create impact with those things, then we call them skills. So it's just how you approach achieving those outcomes. Some of them are really broad. Uh, they're multi-tools. You can make almost any impact with them if you're focusing on making that impact. Like storytelling will help you get closer to almost any goal you're working towards. Visualizing the data you have, great. But others are a lot more specific, capable of very specific impacts, and not other ones, like preparing LLMs for integration or structuring content for reuse. So what's important here is that the skill itself is about taking an approach to achieve some outcomes, not the many different methods you might do to accomplish that skill. Now, I will say the English language, and I don't know if there's any language that's good at this, the English language, I am quite confident now, is very bad at, say, at discussing these things, discussing this whole idea of skills. Um, and and so we've had to do a lot of like, here's what we mean by it in this narrow way. Please come along with us in this book so that we could talk about it at all. So let me give you an example of a skill. Uh, Here's a skill from the book, design content for usability. You may remember this from such books as that other book I wrote. We do a lot of this. We make the UX content that enables and prioritizes people's success. It includes all of these different things, whether it's the buttons or the how-to content, anything that helps people use that experience. Now, that content is how the user understands and uses the experience itself. Uh, and without it, you don't really have an experience. You have some guesswork. In the book, we have every skill is sort of described, but we never tell you how to do it. We just say, here's the skill, here's what we mean by it, and we give you an example. So for an example of designing content for usability, I found this cluster settings management screen. It's an interface for a cloud computing company. It's a particular screen for use by IT pros. There's multiple dashboards, there's multiple information. In this one, the button says replicate, but it's not at all clear. Are you replicating the settings to somewhere else, or are you replicating an entire cluster? That's pretty ambiguous. So, as an example of designing content for usability, we would change that button. So, we have a ton of other content skills. And I will say, like, so this book, the idea for this book came out of the content skills project I started in 2023 or at the end of 2022. Um, and what happened with that project is it really blew my mind about what skills are. And really, I was like, okay, these are content skills. We're doing content things. But then it's like, well, but lots of people do these. Is it a content skill because content people do them? Is it a content skill because it's about words? What does that even mean? And then talking with, after bringing in my co-authors, what are design skills? What are research skills? We got the deeper you go in this, the more ambiguous it is. And the worst part is even though we could sort of say like, yes, these are my pet content skills right here. Nobody else does these but content people. We have a huge number of general skills then that anybody in any UX role would do, right? Like facilitating creative workshops. Heck yeah. Researchers do that, content folks do that, design folks do that. Oh, our entire organization system that we pitched to the publisher to begin with just fell apart. So we did, I don't even know how many card sorts because organizing them was that hard. We reorganized many of them actually even after our technical review. But this is what we settled with. This might be pretty small for you to see. I'm not sure. So instead of saying like, here's the content skills, here's the design skills, here's the ones we hate organizing because everything sucks, instead of doing that, we said, wait a minute, maybe it's not about which role should do them, but let's try organizing them around where in the software development lifecycle is best to do them. So we categorize the UX skills aligned to this life cycle and this sort of double diamond idea. And you see the double diamond here in the blue and the pink as solve the right problem and solve the problem right. But then with our content skills especially, I got to say, no, there's a bunch that we actually use during development. All of the times when development comes back and says, yeah, that's not going to work the way we thought it would work. We need to fix it with words. Heck yeah, we're there in the development phase, even when we're not directly in code, which sometimes we are. And we need to be involved in the measurement of some of it. And what does that measurement mean in relationship to the rest? So those three middle diamonds are sort of encompassed also by this light green, whatever color that is, larger diamond with continuous improvement skills that we use throughout any of them, like storytelling. And then optimize skills at the bottom, like establishing content operations or migrating to a different CMS. Those things you do periodically to optimize. So organizing them this way lets us focus less on our job title and less on the organizational boundaries, although those become more important in a moment, and more on aligning the work to be done with the rhythm of creating the experience itself. But it lets us also see the work from a broader perspective. Are we the right person to be doing this skill? Is this the right moment to be doing it? Do we have what we need to do it? The right skills, the right authority, the right resources, and even more. And most importantly, which business impacts are important to make right now. So let's talk about those business impacts. Business impacts, like I talked about with the strategy and the map, they're just an indicator of progress toward the business goals. Now, we identified 6 categories of impact that we could be making: financial, user, product, risk, operations management. And I'm going to go through each of these, and it's going to be a little bit overwhelming in terms of the listiness on screen, but you made it through the skill list, so you can do this too. I have confidence in you. So financial, we're talking about the income and expenses. We're talking about reducing costs and getting more out of what we already have by leveraging those existing investments. But we're also talking about increasing sales. Now, in terms of just make more money, there's pretty limited ways that working inside UX or working in content, we make more money directly, but increasing sales volume definitely does that. Reducing these costs definitely does that. In contrast, user impacts are also critical, right? Like when we improve user outcomes and user confidence, we are improving the fundamentals of the business, as long as that business is involved with making services or products that people need to use. So when we increase user understanding, when we save user time, we are building the basics of why people buy the widgets we make. And those business fundamentals, I really believe we're going to come back to real soon now. While the zeitgeist currently is, let's put AI in everything. But the investors want more AI. So let's do what the investors want. Eventually, investors are going to want products that people buy, because that is the cyclical nature of these things. And our work, pretty instrumental to that. So product impacts. Every product is itself a business strategy. But the things we can do to improve a product, like increasing its quality, its consistency, defending it from competition, a lot of those things we do with UX things, and specifically with content. We increase adoption and usage every time people actually find what they want without having to think about it or feel like they're reading. And they just go right to it. It's great. We expand markets and potential audiences. The key unlocker of that is translating and localizing appropriately so that we can access multilingual markets around the world. Let's go on to risk. Risk is one of the very biggest things that content does. We manage risk, products manage risk through their content, through disclaimers, through labels, through instructions, through caveats, through all of those things. We are the ones reducing risk to brand perception. We are reducing regulatory risk. We are increasing business viability by how we frame and how we create the arguments around these products. Now, we also reduce risk in development every time we create adequate documentation for the designs. Because the biggest risk to development is building the wrong thing or building the unintended thing. So, risk, it's important. Operations, okay. Increasing sustainability, one of my favorite, and here we're talking about sustainability for the environment, for the people, and for governance of all of the things happening. We also enable transformation. This is a huge deal. Like whenever a company that is set in its ways needs to change how it's doing things, it is a transformation motion. And that's going to get a lot better with good storytelling, with good data visualization, with good organizational communication, a bunch of these skills that are in there. And then the last category of impact I want to talk about is management, the quality of the work environment. In normal times, one of the biggest expenses for a company is retaining its great employees. Those are management impacts that we need to make, right? We need to enable our great employees to understand what's going on, be satisfied with it, be included in the work environment, and bring as many different perspectives as possible to make the best possible products. So that was a lot of impact. How do they connect? How do we put them together? Well, the whole book is arranged around this wine pairing metaphor. There are books that you can buy that are like pairing wine with cheese, pairing these wines of this region with chocolate from other regions. That's great. Actually, I don't drink, so it's really funny for me. But in this new book, we're pairing business impacts with the UX skills that are likely to make them. So imagine this system. Um, we might have, we might start with from a desired impact, like, oh, what's your favorite impact? What's your favorite impact? What's an impact that's on your mind right now? I know I just ran like 41 different impacts by you. Your brain might be a little tired. Oh, increase user understanding is such a great one. So I go to the book and I say increase user understanding, which I think is U5. And I know that they're in the purple range because purple on the edge means impact. Nope, I was wrong. It's U3. I'm gonna just hold it up here. I have all of these different skills that I could go towards. So in my little diagram here, I could choose from not just pizza and paella, I could go a lot farther. I could also go the other way. I could start from a UX skill I've been using. Maybe, oh, let's see. Oh, maybe run effective design critiques. Oh, yeah. And go straight to the impact that I'm likely to make with those. So those would be the impacts that I would need to be measuring and providing evidence around. Making better pizza. Absolutely. So theoretically, we could have a big spreadsheet of skills and impacts, right? And everybody loves a spreadsheet. And we did, in fact, work in a spreadsheet for most of the drafting of these skills and impacts. It helped us align the content. We had a whole content model reflected in the matrix, and about what kind of impact each one was making. But it was not simple. As we worked to research and articulate each skill and each impact, and how each skill made those specific impacts that it makes, we had to refine both lists of skills and impacts. In the final book, where those UX skills intersect with those impacts, we found and wrote about 892 different ways, specific ways, and 19 more universal ways that the 99 skills made the 41 business impacts. Yeah, that's a lot. Now, it will do this when you have the right conditions. Let me ask the semi-rhetorical question. Have you ever been in a situation where at work you were doing exactly the right project to make the right impact? And because of other conditions around you, it was not, you were like, it was like hitting your head against a wall. You were not able to make that impact because maybe other people were just poopy heads, but maybe other stuff. So in the book, for each skill, we talked about the conditions you need for success. And that is the business conditions that you need to successfully make these impacts with this skill. It's also the personal scope and the personal authority you might have in your role, and maybe even the informal authority and scope you might have because of just who you are and who you've made friends with and who you've impressed. You also need resources, whether that's access to specific tools or just the goodwill of your local VP. You also need a good attitude. And specifically, you might need an attitude of communication or collaboration or empathy. There's 15 different attitudes in the book that we include in another section that are referenced by each skill. And then finally, there's also the pitfalls and risks to avoid. Like you can go in, you can have all the right conditions, you can be doing the skill, you've got the skill, you're doing it, and you can fall off a cliff that somebody who had done it before might know about. So the three of us authors, having done these skills, went, oh, but wait, this thing can happen, and we tried to write that down every time. So if I go back to design content for usability that we were looking at before, with this example of the cluster settings management and the unclear, unusable content, when we look at the conditions for success for that, we look at like, oh, actually, you can kind of do this from any scope, whether you're working across a lot of products or a lot of features or within a single notification. But you need enough authority to make those UX content choices uh, that are tied to people using them easily and confidently. So the resources you need there include the user research so that you know what people need to do it easily and confidently. You also need accessibility guidance. You need to know what terminology is controlled, and you need the experts to consult with. To do that successfully, you're going to want some empathy. You're also going to need some self-awareness to know that, hey, the right way for it to be usable for me isn't necessarily the right way for it to be usable for everybody, or even for the main user of this product. Then we also have, excuse me, the pitfalls and risks for this skill. The risks of not doing it, like, oh, well, then people won't use the experience the way the organization needs them to use it. It's a big risk. But the pitfalls of just, hey, sometimes the user and the business goals are at odds. Sometimes the business actually does want them to linger in that experience more so that maybe they'll be shown more advertising. Or maybe even just the technical reason of if they go too quickly, the server will fall over. Also, games are different. So if you make your game content extremely usable, then, I mean, the whole point of most games is that there are artificial game-based barriers between you and the ending. Mario Brothers, it's not that the Mario brother can just get in their little car, hail an Uber, and get to the castle with the princess. I mean, making it difficult is the game. So, pitfalls and risks. And then we have individual impacts. And I'll go into a couple of these. So for reducing the cost of support, these statements in the book are intended for you to be able to uh, copy and paste as a starting place to say, I reduced support costs by designing UX content for usability for this specific feature. And we knew it was a problem because of this research. Because when people then could use the experience and solve their own problems, they don't contact support as frequently. So we observed a drop in support contacts by this much. Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm reading that out, which is very generic, but it's the starting place for you to add your own data. So another one here, improving user outcomes. Why designing user UX content for usability? Because it's easier for users to get to the outcomes they are working towards. Some of these are pretty obvious, but it's still hard to articulate from scratch. Writing these 892 of these was some of the hardest work we did. Also saving user time. Another one here to call out is enabling product market fit by designing content for usability. because users are more likely to use, desire, and prefer products that they find easy to use. Heck yeah, they are. Also reducing regulatory and legal risk because poor usability can make the experience subject to legal action. Yeah. So, are you starting to see it? This bonkers wine pairing guide? We take our impacts. I want folks to start thinking differently about their work. You can find an impact that you want to be using. And remember, those impacts are tied to the overall business goals. They're the waypoints that say, hey, you know what? We're getting closer to that goal because I made this impact. Yeah, you did. And those are tied specifically to skills. Or you could start from the skill you're using to find impacts to measure backwardly. Like maybe you're doing a UX skill because you were told by your manager or your product owner or the developer who you really want to be on the good side of because you know they work on really good things. And you go and they're like, can you do this for me? I think we need a fill in the blank. And you go, oh, okay, how are we measuring success? Because you know what it's not? We are not measuring success by did I make the stakeholder happy? That is not, I mean, it feels great, right? And we do like having great relationships. And it is important to the business and to your career. We can go farther. You can go farther and say, not only did I make the stakeholder happy, but I saved money. I improved operations. I increased quality. I increased sustainability. You can start from the UX skill and find impacts to measure. You can also start from the overall list of skills and impacts and make a personal inventory to find your own strengths and gaps. And while you're doing it, you can start from those UX skills and say, hey, what are the attitudes, the soft skills I need to be successful? Because here was the biggest surprise when we started researching for this book. We interviewed some of the best UX pros we knew. And it was kind of a staggering list of just people who were incredibly good content people, design people, research people, agency, in-house, startup, enterprise. And we asked them, okay, think of the best UXer you know. What are the skills that you associate with them? And every single one of them talked about soft skills. They talked about how great they were to collaborate with. They talked about how great they were at listening, how great they were at synthesizing systems of content and systems of ideas. And of course, the three authors, we were looking at each other like, oh, well, crap. How are we going to put that in the book? Well, it was really important. And those are the attitudes. Attitude is what the World Economic Forum calls the soft skills. So that's how those are snuck in there and how critical they are. So, what this book is, uh, and I want to say that it is a UX skill book, and content people are UX people. You may, in a single career, only be using content skills or skills more aligned with the content set and the general set than the ones more aligned with the research set and the general set. Cool. But even in a single content career, you're not going to use all of those content skills. That's just really unlikely. So what we tried to do here was match those UX skills to the business impacts to make us all better at choosing the right skills to have the best careers we possibly can. So yeah, that's the book. Let's talk about stuff.
Thank you so much, Tori. I hope for everyone this has given you a taste of how useful the book can be in that kind of pick and mix. That's my next metaphor. We've gone choose your own adventure, now we're going pick and mix in that pick and mix way that you can really figure out what you're doing or what you want to do and match it either way. And I think those attitudes, Tori, are so important because perhaps that's the thing that can't be outsourced to AI.
You
Um,
can't. No.
yeah,
Well, and AI also can't do the decision making that we can do.
yeah,
It can spit out words in a believable order about decision making,
mm,
but it is actually not capable of making the decision.
yeah. I think we need to focus more on the artificial than the intelligence in the.
Yeah.
Please pop any questions you have in the chat and we'll come to you. You're more than welcome to talk to to Tori directly. So pop anything you want to ask in the chat. I might start by getting us going. Do you have a favorite child amongst the skills or impacts for content people specifically?
I would love to say I love them all equally. Of course I do. Um, but I did find myself being like, oh, what number does storytelling have? Did I like that number? Is it one of my favorite numbers? What? I mean, that's just brain damage there. Also information architecture, also content strategy, also yeah.
Yeah.
But storytelling, I think, is the one that is probably definitely not my favorite. But yeah.
But maybe the one you think we can most harness to achieve those impacts as content people.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you're not using storytelling intentionally in your practice, um, it is something that, and I didn't for a long time because I was all like, well, everybody can tell a story. That's not special. That's silly, you know? But
Very
no, it makes an enormous difference.
mm. I can see we've got lots of questions. Angus, you've got a hand up. We'll start with you and then go to the chat.
No worries, thanks. Yeah, I didn't think I could type this into chat. Tori, I've been thinking about your map metaphor,
Mm.
and I'm wondering how you have the conversation when you feel like a business is focusing on the like they tell you what impacts they want, but you feel like they're the wrong ones, or at least they're not letting them to good, not really
Yeah.
leading to their goals. So, as an example, a business that's focused very much on short-term increase in sales. So they're looking at tons of A/B testing on their checkout screens with minor little tweaks, and you feel like the real problem is that users don't understand the product. So you really want to
Yeah.
focus on increasing user understanding. And I feel like the map metaphor, might be a sort of a way into that, into thinking about how to have that conversation and how to yeah
Yeah.
yeah.
I think
So
that's I hadn't thought of using the map that way, but that is kind of brilliant because it is all about like, hey, is this the right path to
mm,
get to where we're going? Because this feels like a really steep and difficult technical climb where we could take this nice paved road over here for fewer dollars and go faster, for example. I usually start by asking like, great, what goal are we going for? And I actually find that in a lot of cases um, that a lot of people don't know how to articulate even the final goal. They're just like, no, I'm really good at increasing sales. So I'm going to increase sales and that's going to make everything better. And so, oh, okay. But yeah, asking the question and then redirecting like, hey, if our goal is this, then should we also try this other path that could at least provide insurance for the path that we're on? Nice
yeah.
thought.
Thanks, Angus and Tori. I've got another few questions. I might put weave questions to the end because I feel like that's us being selfish. So I'll go to Jules. Jules says he has just dropped out briefly with dodgy internet. Jules, do you want to ask this question or do you want me to just
No,
read it
no,
out?
happy to do that. Hey Tori, I really love the UX Skills Diamond. Love a good framework, and this is wonderful distillation. So my question's like, we've seen some frameworks coming out of companies that are more what I call like smooshing of the stages in the software design lifecycle. That because AI enables us to prototype quicker, we can get stuff out, we can test it quicker, move quicker. So I'm curious about how that shifts like the insertion of skills, because obviously we
Yeah.
still want those human checks and human loops. Yeah.
I think the thing that I am the thing I okay, so I don't know if I'm seeing this more because I want to see it more. Like maybe I have some cognitive bias happening where I'm noticing people talking about it more than, yeah, like maybe out of scale. But uh but I have noticed, especially in companies and teams where they were early adopters of prototype fast and do the thing and we can build everything. They're starting to go, gosh, it's really expensive to maintain this and even to figure out from our own data what it means. And we're spending so many tokens on these chat interfaces and embedded general purpose LLMs, etc., that they're going, man, maybe this was the wrong thing, but how would we even know? So what it's accelerating is the speed of creation, not the speed of decision. And it's
Mm.
actually reducing informed alignment in teams. Because as soon as everybody that I know in these, especially in big companies, started using like AI note takers for their teams and people stopped showing up or stopped paying attention. And then they also don't read the AI summary. But even when they do, it's incorrect enough that everybody has a different, disorganized idea of what they're building, even if they're building it really fast. So cool, you're going really fast in different directions, and it's real hard to ship. And then, don't you know, Amazon is suddenly down for unknown reasons, and they have to roll back their code. So to answer your question, I hope, um, I think nature is healing, perhaps slowly, and there is starting to be a realization that move fast and break things is expensive. And the question, like what leaders have always needed to focus on in software, is which is the right thing to build in a world where we can build anything.
Thanks, Tori. Jules, I'm hoping that answered your
Yeah, yeah,
question.
great answer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to work backwards. Emma, do you want to ask your question?
Thank you, Tori. That was absolutely incredible. My head is swimming. You said early on that those measurable impacts along the way prove that you're moving closer to the goal. What if an organization is not measuring anything or not measuring very much?
Yeah, then they're vibe managing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so that is true of most places. Even when they say, oh, we're measuring things, we have data streams that's on dashboards. And then frequently, in my experience, even with good data people, the data people themselves are really frustrated because the decision makers are like, yeah, the data says this, but I think we're going in the right direction. So that map analogy is really sort of an ideal case, in that you're assuming that people are willing to make rational decisions and communicate in a rational way. Um, but the research into these things, and we read a lot of research for this book, like how do these things actually happen in the organizational research in organizational psychology, and a lot of it is vibes. A lot of it is um, powerful people,
Mm,
and sometimes it's just the power of a middle manager who might not even think of themselves as powerful, having a month-long anxiety, so everything is terrible, And so, we need to change direction. So I guess what I'm saying is fight vibes with vibes. And if there is no structure in which to measure things, you can still bring in assertions. And one of the things that we talked about with this book when we were writing it is and there's some things like product market fit is not something that you can measure. You can have sort of indicators that like, I think we've found it. Cool. But there's no like blue ribbon committee that gives you're like, and now you have achieved product market fit. No, it is vibes. So you go in as your confident UXer self, your confident content self, and you say, I can make this difference. And now you can even say, and it says so in an O'Reilly book. Which is wild to me. I can't believe I just said that.
You deserve to say it. Carrie's just put in a link to an extract from an Australian movie called The Castle, which our US attendees might not be as familiar with, but there is a lovely scene where someone is arguing for the vibe of the thing. So for anyone who hasn't seen that, please go and check that link out. We had another question from McGee. McGee, do you want to come off mute or do you want me to ask it?
I just wanted to know, and then after I wrote it, I was like, it's probably too early to ask that question. I just wanted to know if you had any examples of how people are applying that kind of, and by the way, it is such an amazing piece of synthesis. Like the amount of work you must have done to get, like, I mean, it's awesome. Like, thank goodness you had collaborators too, because it must have been a lot of work and a lot of discussion to get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was kind of really interested to know if you have started kind of getting any examples of kind of how people are applying it in their kind of work, if it's, unless it's too early for that to start bubbling up.
So mostly I'm hearing from people, I got your book, or I haven't gotten my copy yet. So I haven't heard yet how people are using it, and we are dying to know. So if you do use the book in any way, and you please tell us, especially Maya, our researcher of the trio. She's just dying to know. She wants to run workshops. She wants to run studies. Yeah, and we all want to know, like, this is an incredibly experimental mode for this reference book. And we're expecting also, we're sort of prepared for people to fight us about it. Like, oh, but you got this wrong. Well, we probably did. And we want to hear where.
I think if I'm allowed to just say one more thing, I really like that you've taken this reference book approach, because I think you can feel quite inundated by how much thinking there is now. Like there is, really amazing Substack articles, really awesome like LinkedIn things. There's books. And I actually there's something almost like it just feels actually quite accessible to and a different way of approaching thinking, to have it as this kind of reference. But I think it's really cool. Yeah. Anyway, so thank you.
I think you say in the introduction, Torrey, that it's not a book to be read front to back. Like you don't just go, oh, I'm on this like straight journey as if there's no detours. You have to use it in a particular way. Sophie, we'll take your question and then we might move on to announcements. So Sophie's asking, does the book cover measuring the impacts, i.e. methods of measurement?
Yes, it does at least point you towards measurement frameworks. Like with the skills, we're not saying like, go do this thing, because measurement is as contextual as using the skill. So how you measure, like we give some example frameworks for some of them, and we point you in directions for them. And sometimes we have resources for like, and you want this resource about measuring this thing. And sometimes it's about measuring it, and sometimes it's about finding evidence for it. And the evidence can be qualitative or quantitative. So we do say that that is part of every impact in the book.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Torrey, so much. I just, can't encourage people enough to delve in. I think it helps you contextualize the skills you already have, but it also suggests skills that you might want to develop. And Torrey's not saying in any way that you need to go and develop all of these, tens
No,
and
that
tens
would
of
be
skills.
unrealistic.
Be
That is a bad goal.
Yeah. But it is about picking the ones you are interested in or that might be most relevant to the impact you want to have or the context you're in or the one that might work with, within that, within the realities you're operating in. So we're going to move on to announcements. I'm just going to share my screen again. Share. So if you have any announcements that you would like to share, please pop them in the chat, or just pop your hand up. While you're thinking about those, I'll just go through ours. Oh, I did also want to say that if you're in Australia, Torrey's hard copy of the book isn't available to order until the 28th, but you can get it as a Kindle ebook. The ebookshop.com link won't work for Australians. It seems to only allow you to purchase if you have an American or Puerto Rican address. So our announcements, we are trying to mix things up a little bit in how we do our meetup. So we're looking for people who've done something that they're particularly interested in and want to share with this community. We're looking for lightning talks, so 10-minute short talks with a bit of quick discussion at the end. I'm sure someone's going to pop that link in to the chat if you'd like to put your hand up for that. A reminder that our talks are on YouTube at youtube.com/@wearecontentsd. And we do have our Content Design London training coming up. We've had a bit of a pause on it while Content Design London update all their courses. So we've got 3 coming up in the next few months, starting with the Working with Gen AI. I always want to say Gen IA. In May, Content Design Fundamentals in July, and Content Design in Action in September. So I'm going to stop sharing and just see if there were anyone else have anything to share with our community. Census jobs. People needing short-term work. Thank you, Carrie. Anyone else have anything? Oh, Kasha, the Weave trainings are in Australian time is the main difference, and you get one of us. The CDL training is done in UK time, so we are the official trainers for CDL in Australia. And as Angus said, there's early bird pricing available. All right, I think if there's nothing else anyone wants to share, we'll say a huge thank you to Torrey for sharing both her thinking and an insight into her thinking. Like McGee said, I can't imagine the work that went into thinking this through and synthesizing everything, and to share it with us in this forum has been really appreciated. So thank you, Torrey. And we'll see you all next month. We haven't scheduled a speaker yet. We have someone that we're just waiting to hear from. So we'll let you know as soon as we have that.